The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today I'm joined by Jack Ferns, the Executive Director of the Aviation Museum of New Hampshire.
Thanks for
welcome
having
you to
me,
the
Kevin.
show, Jack.
You bet.
All right. Well, you're going to have to educate me a little bit about this because I don't know a whole lot, really. I'm asking you some questions off camera, but tell me a little bit about the Historical Society of Aviation, if you don't mind.
Sure. Actually, the New Hampshire Aviation Historical Society started in 1995 in Concord, New Hampshire. It was a product of a number of aviation enthusiasts, if you will, pilots, educators, and the like, and they got together as a social group to see what they could do to preserve New Hampshire's aviation history. No one else is doing it. That was in 95. We fast forward to, let's say, 10 years, 2005. In 1998, 1999, the Historical Society became a nonprofit, a 501c3, if you will. And I was instrumental at getting that started. And right after that, the Manchester Airport started to expand. Federal money was flowing.
Right.
Their two runways had to be expanded. There's a small terminal building built in 1937 right there at the Manchester Airport that was going to be demolished. Myself and a few others said, that's a shame. You know, built in 1937, let's go talk to the airport.
Right.
Let's see what they have in mind. Sure enough, they don't have the money to preserve it, and neither did we, quite honestly. A small group of us, probably 10 or 15 of us at the time, approached the airport and said, what can we do to help? Well, how can we preserve this? Well, the Federal Aviation Administration found out about it too and says, we'll help you preserve it.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Nice for us, not so nice for the airport in the sense that their money went toward the building instead of the brick and mortar that they wanted to use for the expansion. But
Right.
Everything worked out. We were all over 21. We all understood. So they preserved the building. In 2004, they moved it from the north end of the field at Manchester Airport to the east side, over in the Londonderry side. In 2005, we as a historical society opened the Aviation Museum of New Hampshire to the public. Small building, relatively small. I think it probably 1,200 square feet, not a lot of room.
Here I'm thinking a huge
No.
hangar. I'm
No,
thinking
no.
maybe there'd be a
No,
number
it's a
of
small
jet-
building.
Okay.
A hallway with two rooms. One's a conference room and one was our exhibit area, if you will. That was 2005. 5 years later, 2010, we were very fortunate to receive $1 million gift from a member, from a donor who had given us some money before, but never to this extent. So the family gave us $1 million. We built what we called the Slusser Aviation Learning Center. It's an addition to the building, which tripled the size. So now we're about 4,000 square feet.
Right.
It's not huge, and it's not an airplane museum. Many people think it's an aviation museum, must have airplanes in it. Well, it does, but it's not an airplane museum. And why? Then again, it's New Hampshire, and there weren't a lot of airplanes built in New Hampshire back in the 20s, back in the 30s. However, there was one, built in 1929, Loudon, New Hampshire. They called it the Doodlebug, and it was a biplane. They built 2 of them.
When you say a biplane, is that with the 2 wings?
Yes,
Two
top
biplanes.
and, upper and lower wings.
Okay.
2 seats, one behind the other. And this airplane did not last either. We all know what happened in the early 1929 stock market crash. They were going to build airplanes. That didn't happen. However, they did build 2 of them, and they flew them. We were fortunate enough to receive pieces. We have a fuselage, a seat, the tail feathers, if you will. And we have, what's more importantly, the original drawings, the pencil drawings from the 2 people, the 2 gentlemen that built the airplane.
What was it originally designed for? Was it just transportation? I mean,
No,
was it
the
two-seater?
airplane itself?
Yeah.
I suspect there was an interest back then for everybody. It was, I think, Kevin, that was probably the romance years
Right.
of aviation.
We can finally get up there.
And finally, well, we can finally afford an airplane. So these fellows wanted to build an airplane that people could afford to purchase and have some fun with. It's basically what it boiled down to. It didn't happen. It didn't materialize into a production line, but it did materialize into 2 airplanes. They both flew. I've talked to people that have flown them. They say it was a wonderful flying airplane for the pilots listening. But as I said before, probably more importantly, we have pieces of that, but we have the original drawings. So we preserved those original drawings. We've used them as an exhibit. So we have an exhibit in the museum itself. But that New Hampshire Aviation Historical Society is, I think of them as the mothership. They're the 501c3. They're the business side of it. And then underneath that historical society, you have the Aviation Museum of New Hampshire and, along with that, the Slusser Aviation Learning Center. So those 2 entities really work for a board of directors, as I do. And I have 1 part-time individual that works with me. And we have 26 volunteers.
Now, what does Slusher stand for?
It's his name.
Okay.
It's the family name. We honored the family by naming it after them. It was Gene and Ann Slusser. They were from Hopkinton, New Hampshire.
And this is the education branch of...
Yes, it is.
And I was asking you off camera, is there a decline in aviation, in people, in technology, and people getting into the field?
Well, not so much technology, because technology is growing. I mean, probably something that we all realize is GPS and how that's growing, or the technology you have at home. I mean, the advancement in technology has gone from getting up out of your chair at home and walking over to the TV to turn the channel, which a lot of young people wouldn't remember, but I know you and I do, to sitting there and controlling everything from the TV to your computer just by sitting there. So the technology is growing all the time, and aviation is growing all the time. Have things slowed down? You bet. I'll give you 1 example, and this is consistent throughout the country. Manchester Airport, because we're located at Manchester, the museum is. In the heyday, when that museum was going to be moved or demolished, when the federal money was flowing, there were 4 million passengers in and out of Manchester on an annual basis. There are less than 2 million passengers.
Even after the expansion?
Even after the expansion.
Really?
Yeah, well, things slow down, and there are a number of reasons for that. So, as far as, that's commercial aviation. Then you get into what they call general aviation, the small airplanes and the corporate airplanes. General aviation can be a 727, or it could be a 1-seat airplane that somebody built by themselves, quite honestly. So there's a wide range of general aviation. But general aviation has slowed down too, because you can imagine if the airlines aren't hiring, then the learning phase or the training phase has slowed down a little bit. There are colleges for training. Daniel Webster College in Nashville, for example.
Yep.
Shut down or closed down their flight department a couple of years ago.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they did. They had over 20 airplanes.
They have that big propeller in front of the entrance going into
They do,
right?
yeah, an airplane hanging in the rafters. But that was a product of the times, quite honestly, going from a nonprofit college to a for-profit college. But are they doing well now? Sure they are. Daniel Webster College, for example, has a wonderful engineering degree in aviation, aeronautical engineering, air traffic control. Probably one of the best in this area, if not the best. So that they just eliminated their costs of teaching people how to fly. It was becoming very expensive on the fuel end of it, on the insurance end of it, and quite frankly, if the placement of those pilots was becoming a problem, you can see after spending 4 years in the college and not getting a job afterwards, why do we want to be training pilots at our college type of thing? So that's the nuts and bolts of that, and there's a lot more to it, Kevin, I suspect. But they're still doing very well, and they're a partner of ours in our training.
Now, as far as, you're reaching out to high school students as well?
Yeah, we are. I came on, but I retired from the state as their director of aeronautics for the state for 16 and a half years, and after that, in 2011, I retired. There was a job opportunity because of the addition of the Slusser Aviation Learning Center. The board was looking for somebody to operate that, and I was in a position where I applied for the job. At that particular time, education was on everybody's mind. And the board of directors, and I applaud their efforts in this regard, the board of directors was very adamant about training the young. Not training them how to fly, although we could, but opening their eyes to careers in aviation. There are many careers in aviation.
Immediately, when you said that earlier, off camera, I'm thinking, okay, are we lacking pilots? But a career in aviation in a more broader spectrum.
You bet.
Yeah.
Let me give you an idea, Kevin. The 6 modules we taught, for 2 semesters, by the way, so they receive a full credit, high school juniors and seniors, toward graduation. The 6 modules we taught 3 in the first semester and 3 in the second. We taught aeronautics, basic aeronautics, what makes an airplane fly. The navigation, what's involved with navigation.
Well, you just hit the GPS button and you go that way.
There you go. Doesn't always work that way, as you and I both know.
Well, the sundial's outdated, so.
Yeah, and of course, looking at a map and the Google Earth and everything else makes it a lot easier for everybody. Flying is similar, not the same, but similar. And then we also taught in air traffic control, ATC. Second semester, we moved on into weather. We moved into communications. And there's a lingo that goes along with pilots. There's a lingo that goes along with operating airports. And you have to understand that to get into the operation side of things. And then last, we finished up the course, as I said, just last night, actually Friday night, with a presentation on all 6 courses to include airport planning and design. So they're all careers. They're all careers that these young people can think about going into. There are a dozen more. We just don't have time. When we're teaching a module, when we're teaching a class, you're teaching a class for 6 or 7 weeks. Think about it. You know, you're trying to spark an interest in a young person in 6 or 7 weeks about weather, let's say meteorology. We have a wonderful college in Plymouth that has a meteorological program up there, 4-year degree program.
And the practical application to all this, so they can move into, they can work for NOAA, or they can work for...
On the weather side? Absolutely. Think about the manufacturing side. I had mentioned GE Aviation to you down in Hooks. It's 750 employees, makes all the parts for the GE engines that they put on these large aircraft. Think about a large operation like that. So let's say we spark the interest of one of the students to go into manufacturing, go into engineering, robotics. You'd be surprised how much robotics are used in GE Aviation today. Math, yeah, a lot of math if you're going to get into that type of
Talking to manufacturers these days, it seems that simple arithmetic is what is really needed.
You bet. That's a good start, obviously.
Right.
When you get into, one of the students, you get a kick out of this, one of the students wanted to get into astrophysics or astrological engineering. He wanted to talk about space. He wants to learn more about space. It just intrigued him when we started talking about space and the stratospheres and the different atmospheres or the different levels. Just intrigued the heck out of him. And in fact, he's coming back next year. They're all juniors, by the way.
Are you working mainly with just the public schools or across?
It took, yeah, I'm glad you asked. It took us a little over a year to get approvals.
Okay.
A little over a year. Now, we have to abide by not only the school, but the state approval systems to actually grade these students. We had to write our own curriculum. We used the basis of a NASA curriculum, which is called Virtual Skies. And Kevin, I'll tell you why we did that. Very simple, the name.
Yeah,
Virtual Skies.
I passed the NASA course in
Yeah,
Nashville, Hampshire.
well, think about that.
Yeah.
NASA doesn't write curriculum, and quite honestly, their program is so ancient and old. We could use a little bit of it, but not a lot.
Yeah, we still got to the moon. Ancient and
Isn't
old.
that
Yeah,
something?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
whatever, you know.
Yeah. Well, this curriculum, I'll give you an idea. We were talking about it a little bit earlier, and that is global positioning systems, GPS. You have them on your phone today. You have them in your cars. You have them in the planes. GPS wasn't even talked about in that curriculum. That's how old that curriculum was. So we updated it, wrote our own curriculum, took a little over a year, got all the approvals to teach juniors and seniors in 3 high schools in the Manchester School District. Most recently, Londonderry just approved our curriculum. So in the fall, we're hoping to have not only Manchester, but Londonderry involved.
Are you looking to be able to cover the entire state, or are you just...
You bet.
Okay.
Well, optimistically, sure. Is that a goal? Yeah, but you have to take one step at a time. I think we could do that, Kevin, with distance learning. I don't know if you're familiar with distance learning, but in a nutshell, you could walk into somebody in Colebrook, New Hampshire, who is interested in Virtual Skies program, could sign up for it in Colebrook, walk into a classroom. You wouldn't need a teacher, certainly a monitor or somebody to stop them from throwing spitballs at each other. They have a monitor where you go in and it links back to our classroom, so it'd be real time.
Right.
It's pretty cool.
Very
And the
interesting, yeah.
technology's there.
Yeah.
The technology's there.
So there would be an active person involved, but you're just distance away, right? I've
Well,
seen
you could
commercials.
actually communicate too.
Right.
Where you're looking at a camera, but you could raise your hand, or there'd be a communication
Skype.
button. Absolutely.
That's very
Just like
interesting.
it.
So is it cost effective? Is there a cost to the students, or do the school districts have to approve it? Do they offer it as a course? Do they...
Well, first of all, they do offer it as a course and it has to be approved. It's in there. It's called an elective, or an ELO, an elective learning opportunity. It's an after-school program. So the kids have to make a commitment. The students have to make it. They have these extracurricular activities. They have all the sporting events, jobs. The boys have girls and the girls have boyfriends. So that, those things take up their time. But there is no cost at this stage.
Right.
There's a cost to us. The board of directors has taken it upon themselves to raise the money to make this program available to the school students.
Are private schools allowed to take advantage of this as well?
Again, it goes back to the curriculum.
Right.
It took us over a year to get it approved.
Okay.
Londonderry, it took probably 6 months to get approved. And other schools would have to do the same thing because of the state restrictions.
I see.
So once they're approved, certainly we'd open that. Why do we teach juniors and seniors, you might ask? Number one, they're the ones preparing for college. They're the ones preparing for the workplace, if that be the case. They're the ones that are young adults, quite honestly. There's a lot of difference between a sophomore and a junior. Think back to yourself.
Right.
There's a lot of difference. So that's one reason. Another reason is transportation. You get into transportation, that's a big issue for the schools. It would be for us. Juniors and seniors are driving.
Do you have an annual growth rate that you're looking at?
When you say growth, student-wise,
Yeah.
I don't mind sharing with you. We started with 4 students this year, ended up with 3 finishing the course. We were pleased with that, by the way. Would we have wanted 10 or 15 in the classroom? You bet.
Right. I'm thinking like 50 in the next year or two, or...
Yeah, we're hoping that we can have 10 next year, or this year, in the fall, especially with Londonderry coming on board.
How many can you handle?
That's a good question. You sound like a board member. Did you talk to them before you came on board?
No.
The
Right?
board has asked us the same thing, and quite honestly, it's my job to report back and give them the information so they can give me the guidance. But we can handle 20 in the classroom itself. You hit a nail on the head when you said, what do you want to do later on? Think about this. If we could get out into the school systems with distance learning, you
Right.
could have 100. Think about it. You could have 5 in one classroom, 6 in another, 5 in another, for all over the state. Add them all up. You could have them taking the program at the same time.
And refresh me on which school districts have approved this so far?
Manchester,
Manchester.
3 high schools.
Uh-huh.
There's West, Memorial, and Central. And then you have the Londonderry School, high school.
Have you approached any of the Nashua schools?
Well, no. We've talked to them. We've talked to Pinkerton down in Derry. Merrimack was up with their assistant, with their principal and their assistant director, superintendent of schools. They're interested. The logistics are such that transportation is one, obviously. Right. Kids have to come to the museum. We're not teaching in the high schools. We're teaching right at the museum. So how high is up, really? I mean, it really boils down to 2 things. One, is there an interest? And if there is the interest, what's it going to cost? Right now, as I said, the board of directors has taken it upon themselves to fund this.
Great time to get in.
and they're going to do it next year. You bet. Right. You mentioned it. Yeah, you brought up a good point. It's a great time to get in. We're hoping that if we open it up, and there are curriculum approvals from other school districts, that they'll start paying for the students, or the parents will start paying for it.
Right.
It's not going to cost a lot. I mean, I'm thinking.
That's what I was wondering.
I'm thinking if we started out with a $50 fee per semester, $100 a year, but we're going to have to really prove ourselves, in my opinion. We just finished up our first successful year. I think it'll take 2 to 3 years.
And really the finished product, though, and if you don't mind looking at it that way, when the kids come in and you've had 3 that have gone through the course, they basically have a basic understanding of those areas that you talked about, and they can build upon those
Let me tell you, as a young fella, junior or senior, then they walk into the terminal at Manchester Airport. I can tell you right now, because we have a number of field trips, they know what's going on behind the scenes. They spent some time with security. Security was over to make a presentation during one of the classes. They spent some time with management. They know what the future is of the airplanes. They've been out on the runways with the trucks. They know what the signage means. The average individual, and I know for a fact that you wouldn't know what was behind the scenes. You can guess, and I can guess. They've been some places I have never been.
How about the GE plant? Do they go there?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they all went up there. 2 large facilities, buildings.
Mm-hmm.
They toured the buildings. After the tour of the buildings, answering questions, they went up to the boardroom. And the manager of the plant took time to go up to the boardroom. They had sodas and chips for the kids, talked a little bit about GE Aviation, and then brought in their human resource officer and let the human resource officer spend some time with the kids.
Creating a little vision for these people to start developing their future.
Oh yeah, they said 2-year degree. Don't you think if you were a parent and you had a kid going to school, you'd rather pay 2 years than 4 years?
Right.
Not only that.
And be job ready.
And they're job ready. If they want a 4-year degree, Kevin,
yeah.
GE says, stay with us for 3 years.
We'll build upon that. And that's what's really in the news a lot lately. You're finding that a lot of people that they go to college, they've got these $100,000 debt, and they're super educated but super unemployed.
You bet.
So here's an opportunity to, at least if you want to get into manufacturing, or if you want to get into the work for NOAA or something a little bit.
You know what was interesting? Excuse me. You know what was interesting? Before I forget, at GE, for example, another comment that opened the kids' eyes. GE has plants all over the world. So let's say you have a young fellow goes to work for them, and a couple of years he says, I think I want to transfer to Germany. Let me tell you. Mm-hmm. I mean, where can you go to work that you can work anywhere in the world and work for the same company?
Right.
Think about it.
Yeah.
So there's a wonderful opportunity in places like that. In manufacturing, for example.
Before we run out of time, there's an event coming up. I think it's the 29th of June?
29th of June, yeah, the Aviation Museum. In the past 2 years that I've been there, we've celebrated the life of 2 individuals last year, and we're doing one individual this year. We've done a fellow by the name of Lou Frank from Woodstock, New Hampshire, very instrumental during World War II. Another fellow by Joe McConnell, born and raised in Dover, New Hampshire, the Korean War. On the 29th, we're going to go into, remember I was talking a little bit about general aviation. We're going to honor a fellow by the name of Jim Tamposi. Jim was instrumental at starting an operation at the Nashua Airport called Nashua Aviation and Supply Company. And he was also involved with the local community as well as getting Daniel Webster College started. He and two others.
Oh.
So we're honoring him for his contributions to New Hampshire aviation.
I think he's pretty well known here in Nashua to some
the
degree.
Tamposi family, I suspect they are.
Yeah.
You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, Kevin, that Jim Tamposi was my father's best friend. The two of them spent a lot of time together. And I was fortunate to have lunch with them many times. When Jim came up to Concord, my father ran the operation at Concord, very similar operation that Jim ran down here.
I failed to tell my viewers, though, that you're a pilot as well.
I am.
And name what you fly. What do you fly?
Well, I started flying. I had my license when I was in high school. In fact, I think I got my pilot's license before I had my driver's license.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, I had that opportunity. My father was running the business. I had more interest in flying airplanes than I did driving cars, to be honest with you. And I still do today. That hasn't changed a bit.
Did you fly in the military at all?
No, I didn't. No, I wasn't fortunate enough to do that. I went to work for my dad, and one thing led to another, and I stay right there.
And what have you flown? Have you flown a helicopter?
Basically, no, I had. Well, yes, but I don't have a helicopter rating. Mostly single-engine airplanes and twin-engine airplanes, one and two engines.
Now, I was told that these little planes are a lot harder to fly than these big jumbo planes. Is there a truth to that?
I don't know. I've never flown a big jumbo airplane. I've flown the simulators, and quite honestly, they're not much. Let me just say this. If you pull back, they all go up. If you push forward, they all go down. You turn it to the right, it goes to the right. You turn it to the left, it goes to the left. There's a lot of weight differentiations between, obviously, a large airplane and a small airplane. Some go faster than others. So, but other than that, they all fly about the same.
Is there an age limit when you have to stop flying?
No, not at all.
You can fly at...
You know what's tied to it is really your medical.
Okay.
Yeah. Unlike an automobile license, your pilot's certificate is good for your life. Once you receive a pilot's certificate, it's good for the rest of your life. Yeah. But you have to maintain your medical to keep it active.
You got me interested.
Yeah.
Is there a website that people can visit?
Yeah, it's our initials. It's New Hampshire Aviation Historical Society. So it's nhahs.org.
Okay, and they can find any information about the education part there as well?
Yeah, and my number's on there, so don't hesitate to give me a call.
Okay, and that event is the 29th?
Yeah, Jim Tamposi's event's the 29th. It's a Saturday. It's the last Saturday of this month.
Okay.
And it's at the museum, starts at 11 o'clock, goes for about an hour. We'd love to have it.
And so if somebody wants to find the museum, they just go to
the website has directions.
Okay.
Yeah, it does.
Great. All right. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate
thanks
it.
for everything that you're doing. That's
Thank
great.
you.
It sounds like an opportunity that people should be taking advantage of.
I hope so.
So thanks for watching Gate City Chronicles, and we hope that this is informative, and please take advantage of this opportunity while it lasts, and hopefully it'll continue to grow. Until next week.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.